Now we will examine the structures of the pharynx and the esophagus. So let's review the pharynx. Recall that the oropharynx and the laryngopharynx are passageways for food, fluid, and air. So they share functions with both the digestive system and the respiratory system. Both the oropharynx and the laryngopharynx are lined with stratified squamous epithelium, just like we saw in the mouth. We see that the inner walls of both the oro and the laryngopharynx are composed of skeletal muscle, so they are voluntarily controlled. So during swallowing, we see that the epiglottis closes the larynx and the trachea, and that way food is directed distally towards the esophagus. The esophagus is a flat muscular tube approximately 10 inches in length that connects the pharynx to the stomach. It is collapsed when food is absent. The esophagus contains all four alimentary canal tunics: the mucosa, the submucosa, the muscularis externa, and the adventitia. The mucosa of the esophagus contains stratified squamous epithelium, just like we saw in the mouth and the pharynx. The esophagus does not function in absorption of liquids or nutrients, since very little has been digested by the time food reaches the esophagus. We see that solid and semi-solid foods only spend about 4 to 8 seconds in the esophagus, while liquids spend about 1 second. This amount of time is too short for any significant absorption to occur, so we see that the esophagus does not function in absorption, but rather simply functions as a food passageway to the stomach. The submucosa contains blood vessels in its areolar connective tissue, and those vessels serve to nourish the mucosa as well as the muscularis externa. The final layer, which is called the adventitia around the esophagus, is a tough, fibrous connective tissue that serves to anchor the esophagus to nearby structures like the trachea. At the junction between the esophagus and the stomach, we see that the epithelium changes from a stratified squamous epithelium to a simple columnar epithelium. It is simple columnar epithelium that lines the entire stomach, because this simple columnar epithelium has gland tissue in it that secretes stomach acids and enzymes, and also functions in a little bit of absorption through the stomach, but not much absorption is going to take place in the stomach. Most of the absorption of the digestive system will take place in the small intestine. We see that the esophagus joins the stomach at a region of the stomach that's called the cardiac region. It's named so because it's in close proximity to the heart. The gastroesophageal sphincter, which is also called the cardiac sphincter, serves to open and close the space between the esophagus and the stomach when the food is not being swallowed. This closing prevents gastric juice and stomach acids from moving up and into the esophagus.